Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Chameleon Chat. I am fortunate to have Moses Farrow back for part two. We ended the discussion last week where Moses was talking about children that have been murdered in their adoptive families. So I'm going to let Moses take it from where we ended last time. Hey, Moses, thanks for being back.
I thank you for having me back and a part two. This is something that we realize takes a long time to unpack. There's so many layers and so much to our experience. And I was going to ask you, so where did we leave it off last time? Um, but here it is already May, and May is foster care month, foster care awareness month. So here's something that was on my mind about there's all these national awareness months,
Mm-hmm.
and among them is National Adoption Month in November.
Right.
And this is a month that we tend to see a lot of advocates, a lot of people who have been adopted, people who have been through this child supply market,
Mm-hmm.
raise their voices
Right.
and raise awareness. Many refer to it as the National Adoption Awareness Month, National Adoptee Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a way to reclaim our voices is the way that it's put out there.
Right.
I have since boycotted the month
Okay.
because it's really just a month-long promotion for the industry. So year after year, I start with the presidential proclamation that kicks off the month. Again, this is National Adoption Month.
Right.
Um, and it's the same message every year, every administration. It's the same message of we need more people fostering children and we need more people adopting children. And the government is going to continue to subsidize, endorse, support the adoption tax credit to make it more affordable, to cut down the cost of adopting a child.
Right.
And so I believe we unpacked this a little bit, or quite a bit last time about the definition of what adoption is.
Right. We did.
Uh, so just to review a little bit, the dictionary's definition, adoption is the act or fact of legally taking someone else's child to raise it as one's own. And in one of my statements recently, I've broken down this definition to its nuts and bolts, which is taking someone else's child to own it. And the language and the word choice is key,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So breaking it down, right? Taking someone else's child to own it. Why do we need to refer to this as adoption and not simply just taking a child and owning it, right? Because one has been legalized,
Mm-hmm.
adoption has been legalized. Taking and owning a child is still a crime.
Right.
It's child trafficking.
Right.
So, okay. Let's see. So, boycotting National Adoption Month, and in doing so, I have found several other months. I mean, really, almost every month in throughout the year has some application to our population.
Really.
So January, starting with January, for me, is one of the most important months. It's the Human Trafficking and Modern Slavery
Yes.
Prevention Month. And I've become very active during the month of January, raising awareness.
Hmm.
And also last month was Child Abuse Prevention Month. And
Right.
these are prevention months. These aren't just awareness months.
Right. Right.
So last month I was very active in raising awareness, but um, bringing the kind of language and demand for the need for shutting down this child supply market. So I wanted to unpack that a bit more
Okay.
today, shifting the language and recognizing that there are multiple child supply markets the human trafficking industry has created
Yes.
and is profiting from. So now that we're in May, um, to kind of go through a few more. So February is Black History Month.
Hmm.
That's a very important month as well. There's, again, using the known common language of transracial adoptions. Um, During that month, I bring up the fact that the National Association of Black Social Workers issued a position statement on against transracial adoptions,
Okay.
um, calling for the preservation of their culture
Hmm.
and their heritage and their identity. Uh, so, um, so that was issued in 1972.
Okay.
1972,
Wow.
the National Association of Black Social Workers made a statement against transracial adoptions, and yet,
Yeah,
here
they
it is.
saw it back then.
um,
Yeah.
and yet, here it is today.
Right.
The industry has persevered and continued. So, March, I believe, is Women's Heritage Month. Um, I believe Women in History.
Yeah.
So that certainly is a very important month. And where I'm spending a whole lot more time and attention and my focus on women and mothers
Right.
in this trafficking scenario, in the really what I refer to as a trafficking scheme. Um, so uh, in that framework, in that context, women and mothers are seen as the suppliers of their children, wombs, and eggs.
Right.
So, thankfully, there are a couple people, organizations that are looking to educate women and support them in keeping their children, in keeping their families together,
Hmm.
right? So,
Right.
so that would be Renee Gellen
Hmm.
at SOS, Saving Our Sisters,
Right.
and Katie Burns at the Family Preservation
Yeah.
Project.
I'm talking to them on Friday, next Friday.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, I did see you're having a conversation with them and Lisa Scott
Yes, Lisa
and
Scott.
the documentary.
Mhm.
Yeah, Lisa and I have had several conversations about her documentary project as well. Very important to keep raising awareness, um, but really the voices of our mothers
Mhm.
and women really should be centralized. I know among adoptees, we want to make it about us, our voices, listen to adoptees. And I'm shifting my focus more to women and mothers. And so That's March, April, Child Abuse Prevention Month, and now May. Here we are, Foster Care Month, Foster Care Awareness Month.
Mm.
So, going back to that initial point, there's lots and lots of national awareness months throughout the year that we could really be raising our voices pretty much all year round and not just centralize, not
Right.
just centered on November. So, yeah, September, I believe, is Suicide
Right.
Prevention Month as
Yep.
well. That's another really important
Hmm.
one.
Yes.
So, yeah, I would urge that people in our community, in really communities across the world, our population, advocates, people who are courageous enough to raise their voices, to be outspoken, to look into these other months and take advantage of the fact that these other months do exist
Yes.
throughout the year, and that's what I see most effective is when we continue to bring up the issues all the time,
Yeah.
and
And
not
I
just
have used
yeah.
those hashtags in those months uh, when my post is specifically to that and to
Hmm.
your point, because it does get more traction because you're right. The months are specific to specific things. And yeah, pretty much every month we could have a voice. But yeah,
Hmm.
using those hashtags can reach people that may not be aware of what
Hmm.
adoption really is because of the narrative that we are battling year round of the false narrative of it's always a better life and it's saviorism and yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for bringing those points back up. That's the driving force behind raising our voices, listening
Mhm.
to survivors of the child supply market. So getting back to unpacking this idea, well, this context of seeing seeing adoption through this lens of a child supply market. I believe last time, given what we're just saying, it bears repeating over and over again. The way that I phrase it at this point is that the human trafficking industry has created a global child supply market. Let's see. Do I have all? No. So the human trafficking industry uses adoption as its propaganda to run a global child supply market in which it profits.
Hmm.
Right? And at this point, profits are in the multi-billions of dollars.
Right.
And when I say multi-billions, I'm talking about like $400 billion industry
Worldwide.
worldwide.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh, so uh, it's been a progression for me over the years, and really just over the last 5 years or so, that I've focused in on this, continue to shape my language, which is all laid out. Anyone who has been following me on my social media, in whatever articles or podcasts that I've been on, that I've been able to speak to, can see where I've been progressing on my own journey
Yeah,
with
I've
this.
noticed.
So, and here's a note worth mentioning then. And thank you for being someone who has been following along.
Hmm.
a note worth mentioning is we are all on our journeys and we're all putting it out there. Whatever stage we were at,
Hmm.
we feel okay, we got it. And it's known within our communities as coming out of the adoption fog. We've even identified what fog is,
Right.
and with it being an acronym to, I believe it's fear, obligation, and guilt,
Yep.
and finding our ways through that, really to overcome our fears and sense of obligation and the guilt from uh, being disloyal.
Right.
So in any case, language that I don't use anymore, and I only reference it in a way to meet people where they're at, but it's not where I'm at. So yeah, it's challenging then when you have such a large group of people, um, and I refer to us as a minority group, by the way.
Yeah.
So, such a large minority group who are all outspoken, all at different points in their journeys, all
Right.
saying, "Oh, I now have the truth. Oh, no, I now have the truth. No, I'm out of the fog now." And whenever, if ever, we all come together and we compare notes, is when we clash.
Yep. Clashes do
And
happen.
you know, and it's known that there's a lot of infighting going on within our communities, and we all feel that we have the truth,
Right.
that we've arrived at uh, this idea of coming out of the fog, and we feel justified and defensive, so all of it really being distraction and a result of um, an industry that wants us to keep being divided,
Yep.
and therefore ineffective
Right.
in what we're doing. So it's been important to me, and I realize like I'm going off on all different tangents, but it's all kind of come back around to the main
Yep.
theme, right? Of unpacking this child supply market.
Right.
So
And by dividing us, we don't speak, and you'll hear positive and negative and all sorts of, and it sounds like we don't know what we're talking about. That's what I hear from the other side sometimes is like, well, look, they fight within their own selves. They can't even make up their own minds. So they're not a singular voice. But that's kind of trying to simplify a huge, great, complex experience because people can have whatever feeling they have about their family. I've never tried to tell somebody, well, you don't like your adopted parents, even though I get comments like that. People, I'm sure you
mhm,
have too, that we're trying to turn them against their parents, which that's not it. It's the system, which is what you're talking about. The
mhm,
supply child, people being supplied children through unethical and immoral means, and in some cases, outright illegal means. So that's what we're talking about. And I think that that's where people get confused and where a lot of the infighting happens and where the outside people get confused that we don't want children taken care of. That's not true. We do, but we want it done child centered and not where it's being profitable and it's systemic and it's basically taking who gets to be a parent. It's a child policing system, right?
mm, mm, mhm, mhm, mhm. Um, let's see. So, yeah. You've unpacked quite a bit here. Where I bring it back to all of it being um, coercion and control tactics,
Right.
and so. it being a child policing, and all that. So okay. Uh, I was remembering during COVID, there was an upsurge of anti-Asian racism and hate crimes.
Right.
And within the Asian American communities, the voices and advocates that were given a chance to raise the issues, there were two distinct messages coming from the Asian American communities population. So one was to address the model minority myth, and I know that we have a lot of myths in our communities as well. We're constantly dispelling the myths of adoption, right?
Mm-hmm.
But really, the myths of here's what the dominant narrative says about this, right? So in the Asian American communities, it was important to say that our experience is not monolithic,
Mm-hmm.
that we are that there is the diaspora, and, and that so that was important to individualize and and also dispel that model minority myth, to not set us against other minority groups and hold us up to some arbitrary socially defined idea of what we should be when we're not. So during that time, something very similar to what we do here, which is put it out there, we're done living a lie, right? Stop applying this false narrative on us.
Mm-hmm.
So much of what you were saying in making those distinctions, we're not. How did you put it? We're not against caring for children,
Right.
but we are against the crimes of taking and trafficking and making a profit off of them.
Right.
So it's important to unpack uh, these predetermined, readily accepted notions and ideas and myths about what adoption is. And so along this line, this is why I'm against calling it adoption, because we are aware of the propaganda. We are aware of these false narratives. It doesn't serve us to continue putting them in people's minds by referring it back to adoption, where it activates those pathways in people's minds. Oh, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about adoption. Yeah, I know several people, and they've all
Mm-hmm.
had beautiful, wonderful families and lives, and
Mm-hmm.
it's such a wonderful thing. Everyone should adopt,
Right.
right? We don't want to activate those pathways. We
Right.
don't want to have to, then get into those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
We want people to know the truth of what's really happened to us,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Right.
so that doesn't happen, or that doesn't happen in the way that we really want them to happen. That's really effective, because we're then dealing with people's defenses and people's preconceived notions and people's predetermined attitudes towards adoption.
Right.
No, 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 but listen to me. Listen to what I'm telling you. Listen to my personal experience. And then we get pigeonholed into, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience,
Right.
and
Right.
not able to say, look, I'm actually representing tens of thousands of us
Right.
out here. And actually, it's not just tens of thousands. I'm representing millions of us.
Millions. Yes.
Like this is not just my truth. This is an objective truth.
And potential more adoptees. I mean, we're speaking for people that could or could not be either put in the system through relinquishment or through foster care, because there are different avenues. And maybe we should talk about that a little bit too, infant adoption as opposed to foster care, because this is where people definitely go, well, what do you want them just to stay in foster care? Do you want them, or I always get orphanages, and they don't realize that we don't have orphanages in the United States. So then I have to ask which country you're in. So it gets complicated in these conversations. So let's talk about that a little bit, the difference between infant adoption and the foster care system.
Uh, okay. So use of language.
That's what I'm wanting to get at here, because you're very good with this use of language. So go.
Thank you. Use of language. Well, it's incredibly hard to let go of the adoption language, you know. And I hope this is okay, where you're saying, let's get into infant adoption versus foster care. So in order to have an effective conversation, we got to lay down the foundation, right? We got to
Right.
keep laying down the foundation of, well, what framework, what context are we going to talk about this, right? And even in talking about orphanages, okay, it's a widely held notion that the U.S. does not have, quote, orphanages. What comes to mind when you think of an orphanage, right?
Right.
You're thinking of a warehouse, thinking of, maybe one or two nurses walking around metal crates or cribs, or, filled with hundreds of infants just wailing or not wailing,
Right.
and, in a
That's the image. Yeah.
like condemned building,
Right.
right?
That's the image. That's the image.
Right. Where I'll speak, for South Korea. There are very nice orphan homes, and there is this other image, where it's run by a governess, and there are children playing out in the yards, and having a great time, and being cared for. And then there's also the ones run by nuns and the church, and many are actually run by nuns and the church, right? So
Right.
um, so there's actually several, if not more, images that come to mind when we talk about orphanages or orphan homes, and and the kind of experiences that infants and children have in those places. So for myself, I was told that I was placed in an orphanage, and it was laid out to me, cardboard boxes, being hugely neglected, and and decrepit, kind of that condemned building warehouse image, you know, and that was reinforced every time I asked, where did I come from, or what was it like? Um, so you can imagine, that image being ingrained in me,
Yeah.
for years. Oh, that's the image of South Korea. I had no other real image of that, of my homeland. So, so in any case, bringing it back to infant versus foster care. So I've just made a statement. Again, May being foster care month, foster care awareness month. the foster care system is in fact not broken. It's working for the human trafficking industry and doing a pretty great job of it for
Mm-hmm.
decades. And for decades, certainly, within our lifetimes, the foster care system has always maintained hundreds of thousands of children, despite all the money and resources the country has to reduce the numbers of children in state care,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there have been times that the numbers have been reduced to maybe a few 100,000, or maybe less than 200,000.
Right. I think that
But
was the lowest point.
but there's always been hundreds of thousands of children in state care,
Mm-hmm.
and also for decades, for decades, there have been numerous reports about abuse in state care of children in state care. And for decades, there have been statements and promises of reform measures to these state child welfare systems and foster care systems to improve them, to reduce the abuse, and so on and so forth, alongside numerous reports of children in multiple placements, like a whole childhood lifetime of
Mm-hmm.
placements where they age out
Right.
of the system. And then people are wondering, well, what do we do with them after they age out? How do we support them, or, what should happen to them? So you're really bringing up two different markets,
Right.
right? These
Yep.
are two different child supply markets.
Yes.
Okay, because while the interest, while the demand has been more for infants and babies.
Mm-hmm.
See, I caught myself there. I was going to say infant adoptions, but um,
Yep.
let's keep it about infants and babies, right? So the
Yeah.
demand has been for infants and babies
Right.
for quite a while, right? Why?
Because people want the baby experience.
Because they want the baby experience, because they want the full
Mm-hmm.
parenting experience.
Yep. And a lot of people still believe babies are blank slates too.
Mm.
They don't realize that 0 to about 5 to 7-ish is when everything is formed. It's the most important time of our lives.
So, so yes, that is true. Infants are not blank slates. The first 9 months, right from conception, the DNA coding, everything has an impact on who we are. So, of course,
Yeah.
it sounds pretty common sense, doesn't it?
Yes. It does.
Um, so that tells you, like how powerful the propaganda is
Mm-hmm.
to mislead people thinking, oh, they're blank slates. You can rename them. You can re-identify them.
Right.
They're now yours, and you can do whatever you want with them. And so again, taking someone else's child to own it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, it all comes back to work being commodified.
Right.
We're commodities.
Yes.
Commodities without names, without rights, without really, anything.
Being put
So,
into a lifelong contract without consent.
so yeah, notice how that activates that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that whole issue around consent and,
Mm-hmm.
making the best effort to find any biological relatives before putting us up for adoption,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
They
all
don't
that.
even try to find the father in a lot of cases. I mean, babies are always assumed they have one parent.
Um,
because hardly anyone even talks about fathers' rights. It's just now beginning to even be like a topic. And fathers that have been victims of this system also are starting to speak up.
so yeah, thank you for bring that up and making that point. All of it indicative of how we've been socialized, how society frames it all. Um, and so isn't that fascinating? Just saying blank slates activated a whole pathway of thoughts, right? A whole
Right.
train of thoughts there. That led us down a whole other tangent.
We can go off on many.
Well, that I do hope I'll keep coming back so we can, really like keep laying out this
Mm-hmm.
foundation and
Mm-hmm.
unpacking it, at these deeper levels. So all of it, centered around use of language. All of
Mm-hmm.
it centered around, um, for me, understanding what these child supply markets are and how they've been formed, and what are the contributing factors that keeps them going.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of it is the propaganda, these lines of thought, thinking and tangents that we're just getting into, we're mentioning,
Right.
we're tapping into. But it is at that level where this propaganda has been around for hundreds of years, being perfected and carefully crafted, right, for hundreds of
Right.
years. So it's deeply rooted
Mm-hmm.
in our psyches, and so to uproot it, we need to go like It's not enough to pull up a weed, at the surface.
Right.
Because the root, if the roots remain, a whole new weed's gonna, and it's gonna come up even stronger. So
Yep.
so we need to uproot, every bit of the root. So just to make that observation about, yeah, we can go down all these tangents, and tap into just these readily made pathways, so it's this, blank slates. Oh, it's, rights and consent and parental rights, and we center a lot on mothers and women, but what about the fathers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so on and so forth. But at the core of it is the industry running a child supply market that, oh, great, keep them racking their brains, racking their minds around all these nuances, right?
Mm-hmm.
While we just sit back and still profit off of tens of thousands of quote adoptions a year in this country, in the
Right.
U.S.,
Yeah.
comparatively to other countries that are reducing and shutting down their programs, where South Korea, I think up until recently, maybe
Mm-hmm.
a couple of thousand per year. Australia down to a few hundred per year,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and numerous other countries now throughout Europe,
Mm-hmm.
Asia, and other
Yep.
continents, attacking their quote adoption programs and shutting them down,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Uh, so, in any case, here we are in the U.S., still um, uh, laying out the foundation, right?
Yeah. And I did want to intervene because I have seen other countries actually call our adoption uh, industry here child trafficking. Other countries, people from other countries see how it's done here and they straight up call it child trafficking. It's usually people within the United States that have issues with this language.
Mm. I thank you for making that point. I have made the distinction. The countries that are more oriented to reform, making reform, than straight up abolishing the industry.
Hmm.
shutting down the industry are the ones that have more difficulty or have a greater challenge with this use of language.
Hmm.
So just case in point, other countries call it falsified documents. If you look up the definition of human trafficking, falsifying official documents is an act of human trafficking.
Hmm.
But over here, we're calling it what, we want access to our original birth certificates. And
Right.
I have not seen any of those reform advocates want to refer to this as falsified official
Yeah.
documents.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm using a falsified document to get a passport
uh,
because I
right?
have to use my original birth certificate. So I picked up my original birth certificate, but I have to use the second original birth certificate, the falsified one.
But we don't refer to them as falsified documents. We
Right.
refer to them
Even though
as
it is
amended documents,
amended.
birth records, amended birth records,
Hmm.
second birth certificate, right?
Right.
You know, so this is the challenge because once you take the reform approach, you're wanting to appeal to the powers that be. You're wanting to appeal to the very same legislators, policymakers, right?
Hmm.
That passed those bills, that sealed the records, that created this whole process of amending and creating false birth records, right? We don't want to upset them, right? We don't want to necessarily hold them accountable. We just want our records back, right? We just want to set the record straight, so to speak, right?
Hmm.
So once you take this reform approach, see, and here's a whole other pathway and tangent that
Hmm.
we're on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so to wrap up this point, this is another issue with reform. We're actually appealing to our oppressors. We're actually appealing to and like asking, pleading, begging the very people who created the policies that violated our rights to do the right thing
Hmm.
without calling them out, right? Without holding them accountable, without just let's avoid all that. Let's make let's do this in a collaborative, friendly way. Because the bottom line is we just want our records. We want our identities, and that's all we really care about. So the crimes and the need to hold people accountable. um, so that's where I draw that distinction. The countries that take a reform approach are the ones struggling with the language and struggling with uh, the criminal or the criminalization aspect, uh, being able to just outright call these crimes,
Hmm.
crimes of the state,
Hmm.
crimes of the state, crimes of the church,
Right.
crimes of our government.
Hmm.
So, in any case, I'm calling all that out because for me, we need to hold people accountable.
Hmm.
Um, and acknowledgement again in other countries in the form of apologies um, seems to be so important to them. But really, the apology is at least one form of acknowledgement of taking responsibility for committing a crime.
Hmm.
So, in any case, getting back to because I know that we're low on time at this point.
Oh,
So
wow. We have talked almost an hour. That was quick.
it feels like we're still barely scratching
I
the
know.
surface.
I know. We could talk for days.
um, uh, so the two main issues that I'm focused on,
Okay.
right, to get to today, Foster Care Awareness Month, Foster Care Month,
Yeah.
the point that the foster care system is in fact not broken. It's working very well for the human trafficking industry. So again, now that we've unpacked a bit of the reform approach, this is not about reform measures
Hmm.
and reforming the system to fix the system, because that's not acknowledging the fact that there is a human trafficking scheme behind this, and the human trafficking industry is using the foster care system as a child supply market. um, Very, and it's really effective
Hmm.
because the way it works, in a very quick 20-second version, children are being taken from their families through a process of terminating their parental rights, their parents' rights to them,
Hmm.
in order to have the state take custody, to be put in the custody of the state, in order to be placed in a foster home, dare I say, foster home,
Right.
to be put in a foster placement. Um, and then there are two outcomes. There are two basic outcomes to where these children go. Either they're reunified,
Hmm.
right, where foster care is seen as a family preservation um,
Right. It's supposed
mechanism,
to be for reunification, right?
right, family reunification, family preservation.
Hmm.
It's supposed to be,
It's
right. Foster care
supposed to be.
foster care is a temporary child placement system, right? So supposed to support parents and families to get back on their feet.
Right.
And the idea of, okay, we will reduce your load, your parental responsibility, your financial responsibilities, so on and so forth, to help you back on your feet, right? Reduce the amount of responsibility you have. So, okay, um, that was meant to be a 20-second version of terminating parental rights, to put them in state care, to be placed in foster care. One outcome, which should be the primary outcome of reunifying and preserving families, keeping families together. The other outcome is, quote, adoption.
Hmm.
And from what I've learned from, ever since the baby scoop era, the foster care system has gone back and forth. No, foster care should only be fostering children, and then placing them back to their families. And in other times, like several other times, in the last, what, 60 or 70 years, um, foster care has been seen as a way to adopt children,
Hmm.
and that's where we are. That's where we've
Right.
been, for quite some time, as the cheaper way to adopt
Right.
children.
The discount.
There is a statistic out there that indicates 60% of people who adopt from foster care do it because it's cheaper,
Right.
because of the cost.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, um, yeah, every time the cost of adoption comes up, the hairs on the back of my neck just
Hmm.
stand up. How can we openly talk about the cost of taking someone else's child to own it?
Hmm.
How is this allowable? So the point I want to make about foster care this month is it is a child supply market for human trafficking. There are no known, at least known to me, statistics about wrongful removals of children. Yet it's becoming more and more known, more and more reported that children are being wrongfully taken from their families.
Right.
And it's again, use of language. Can't say illegally to
Right.
but certainly wrongful. Where parents are coming back, they're getting more and more outspoken about there's absolutely no neglect or abuse happening
Hmm.
in my home.
Right.
And just as we've seen in other areas of the law, um,
In my state, 80% of the children in foster care are not there due to neglect or abuse. It's because of financial reasons, which look like neglect because they just don't have the money. But it's not because that their parents don't love them and care for them. It's just that they're struggling. And in those cases, why are we not helping the family to stay together? If it's not, an abuse situation, that's 80% of the kids that could stay in my state could stay with their family
so
potentially if they had the resources.
so in your state, you are able to say this is a reason, but
Hmm.
is it in that category of being seen as these are wrongful removals?
Well,
I'm
80% probably you could say that if it is just a financial reason, but legally, that's a different topic, right?
So I'm wanting to create this new category of wrongful removals for research, statistics, data collection purposes. Poverty has been the primary reason to take people's children from
Right,
them for the last 400 years.
right.
That's where they started. They went to impoverished homes and families,
Hmm.
saying, "We can give your child a better life. This is in
Right.
the best interest of your child." Going back to that,
Yeah.
right? So,
Colonizing. Yeah.
those statements continue today,
Hmm.
and yes, poverty is one of the known and myths of foster care and adoption. Uh, so, uh, yeah, let's create this new category of wrongful removals,
Hmm.
and outside of the accepted known reasons of abuse and neglect, where, to your point, legally speaking, this is financial neglect, right?
Right.
Uh, so, so, uh, yeah, that may be, a good place to start in our next conversation.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but in terms, uh, here's my primary concern. One of my primary concerns, one of the two, right, is the fact that in the foster care system, and I might actually just quickly pull this up,
Okay.
because I wrote this very clearly out this morning. So okay,
Perfect.
let's land on this. Parents beware. Why aren't there statistics of wrongful child removals? Why are parental rights really terminated? What's the real reason for terminating parental rights? Why are children still being abused, tortured, and killed in a system designed to protect them?
Hmm.
The truth is, the foster care system is not broken. It's working for the human trafficking industry. And the solution is to shut it down. Shut it down. Um, Shut down foster care? No. But shut down the child supply market?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Right? Shut down the child trafficking elements in the foster care system?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So just to be clear, right, going back to your point, this isn't about shutting down the care of children. That's not what this is about. What it's about is identifying the criminal elements and shutting down that aspect,
Right.
right? So that's uh, that's something that I hope we'll continue to come back to. I do hope you'll invite me back, and we'll carry
Yes.
on. We'll carry on.
We'll keep talking because there's a lot to unpack. And like you said, this is the perfect month to be talking about this. And you've got a lot of knowledge to share. So I do hope that everyone goes, checks out Moses and the websites and everything. I'll link again in the show notes. And thank you for
Uh,
sharing again.
Thank you, thank you. If I may, just take 10 more seconds.
Absolutely. You do.
Everybody should look up the case of Michael Faisal,
Okay.
Marcus Faisal in
Mm-hmm.
Ohio. Everyone should look up the case of Selena Kellum in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
more recently,
Mm-hmm.
of Blake and London Devon in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone should certainly look up Andrea Bowman, also known as Alexis Turkanian, in Michigan. Everyone should look up the case of um, Samaya, I believe her name is. This is a brand new case. Um,
No.
the trial just finished. Oh my gosh! So I want to say her name is also in Florida. So also in Florida, the Miami-Dade County case that just wrapped with a life sentence of a girl who died from being abused, like literally being abused to death. Former foster care provider turned adoptive parent, right? Turned permanent placement. Everyone should look up these cases and
Yes.
notice this is across the U.S.,
Yes, it is.
not just one state, not just one time, not just right.
Right.
Uh, so these are
Happens
these
too
are
often.
these are landmark cases. Oh, and Dakota Levi Stevens in Indiana. Absolutely. Several of them are running petitions right now to create new laws. Dakota Levi Stevens, Alexis Turkanian, Blake and London Devon, Trenton Schuler, and Mariah Foster in North Carolina, Selena Kellum in Florida, as well as I believe the girl's name was Samaya, also in Florida, Marcus Faisal in Ohio. I mean, there are numerous others, but just wanted to highlight the few that are just always on my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll remember them. Thank you for saying their names. And
Yes.
thank you again for being here. And we'll see you next time.